So there's been a lot of talk ever since Baker Mayfield injured that shoulder and had to leave the game and miss a game on Thursday night for the first time in his career, at least miss a start for the first time in his career, about what do you do if Baker's hurt? What do you do in the situation if he's hurt for 6 weeks, out for the year, maybe just a couple? So I'm going to try to walk through all of those scenarios. But before I get into that, I want to make sure you guys hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and ding that notification bell so you can be notified when I upload. Also, I want to give a huge thanks to the patreon.com dog check tier members. And I'm going to start with Michael Matique, Cam Vex, Jaleel Salim Jr. and Sr., Caleb Pickering, Benjamin Woods, Michael Terry, Sam28, Wani Boy, Rob Morehouse, Tyler Chiz, Michael Morales, Mark Kahn, Max Haymaker, Nick Merrick, D.A.J., Joe Hart, Gabriel Wilson, Fred Pat III, David Valtiar, Relentless Buck, Rex Kaufman, Kevin Johnson, Cleveland Cart, Matt H., Sign Sheets, Gemini, Leon Freeland, Fight 3074, Chunt, Yo-Yo, Matt Lloyd, Paul Wilcox, Hondo Magnifico, Cal Stoffer, Lukey from Munich, Dave Roth, J Guy 101, Musty Taco, Brad Cowbo, Dylan W, James McGinley, Arendal, Chad Gimme, David Maldonado, Josh Spindor, Austin Rich, Mark M, Stuart Moore, Dylan Hill, Cleveland BCI, Robert Germain, Dave Mike May, Andrew Hirsch, Curtis Bayer, Batman, Barack Kumar, John Albert, Beerman 069, Masayua, Butts Roland, Mac House, Reeve Hertz, Philip Wilcoxon, Marie Vivert, Sean Barron, Goggles Pisano, Dom Gazzulo, Nick Nasty, Ian Whitaker, Colin 216, Christian, Dave Strong, Michael Stone, Soul Train, Billy, Moose Gentry, Austin Z, Mark Burnett II, Andre Griffin, Otis Wolf, Dog Pound Kai, Greg Ehlers, Austin Bolin, Lydia Mahawk, Alexander Davis, Chris Falms, Picktown Browns backer, Max Nilakenko, Max Al Dojo, and Water Bear Marketing. Again, guys, thank you so much. Now let's jump into the video. Okay, so let's talk about the shoulder injury because it's the most mysterious injury in the world right now. We have no idea what the extent of it is, how bad some of the extra things have been reported are to it, what the timetable is, if he's going to miss another game, if he's going to be out for the year, if he's going to get surgery. So to kind of get a baseline on what we're talking about, Baker Mayfield right now has what we can confirm through several reports: a torn labrum, and a fractured humerus bone. Now, the fractured humerus bone, there's not a lot of consistent information on what that injury specifically affects, if it's a pain thing or is it something that's locking up his rotator cuff so he can't even lift the arm. What we do know, right, is that in order for Baker Mayfield to play quarterback, even though it's his off arm, in order to throw, you need to be able to lift that arm or have some degree of movement with that arm. There's varying opinions on how much worse him redislocating that shoulder can make things when it comes to recovering long term. There are some people that say it's minimal, it's barely even something you can factor into the recovery time, and there are some people who say that it has a more drastic effect. There's not a lot of consistent information on it. This isn't an injury that we tend to talk about a ton. But we do know about it is that it's painful, right? Anybody who's ever popped the shoulder out their socket knows it's very, very painful. So there's going to be a ton of pain. What we don't know is that if the swelling and the humerus bone situation is making it so he can't move his arm up here to be able to throw the ball properly, right? That's the big question here with Baker Mayfield. Also, the question isn't if his injury is going to heal. These are injuries that, unless he can't physically get that arm up to throw the ball on his opposite side, that, are injuries that are going to be more painful than they are going to be long-term harmful from what I understand of it. And if that is the case, it's not a question of if it heals, it's a question of if he can play with it, right? Can you bear enough pain, or is the pain, or is there something that is physically preventing you from playing football? Now, I know that sounds harsh. We know Baker's a tough guy, and to some point you don't want to push it too hard, but you can't really kick this can down the road or be patient with it or say, hey, we'll just get him next year, because this window is like thin. Like you have this year and then maybe next year where you're going to have this level of a roster. So you cannot waste it, and no disrespect intended, but you can't waste a year of this roster on Case Keenum who, no matter what you have around him, probably not going to be able to win a Super Bowl. Now let's talk about Case Keenum, because I get it. He's the quarterback right now. He's who's healthy. There is a level of optimism that a lot of fans want to have. And I'm not going to step on that completely. I've talked about my analogy with him. I think he's a donut on a car, not necessarily the full tire. So with Case Keenum, here's what Case Keenum can do. He can get you a couple of games. He can get you 1 or 2 games. You would like to have those games happen as quick as possible next to each other, because he's very easy to kind of scheme against once you know what's coming with him. But that's what you have to do with Case Keenum. He's not going to stretch the field. He's never going to stretch the field. He's not going to throw the ball downfield. That's not what Case Keenum has ever done well, and especially since he had left Minnesota, what he has done well. Now, I hear a lot of people bring up when I talk about Case Keenum, oh, Q, you're not being fair. Didn't Case Keenum bring the Vikings to the NFC Championship game? One, the NFC of 2017 is a completely different world than what the AFC of 2021 is. That's just a point-proven fact. To get to the AFC Championship in the AFC requires you to have to put up points with the Chargers, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Buffalo Bills, or Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, who are putting up massive numbers. I mean, they just put up 41 on the Baltimore Ravens. The Browns offense ain't going to score 41 points with Case Keenum. I don't care who they have on the roster. It just isn't happening, and it's especially not happening on a consistent basis. Maybe in 2017, where there were Nick Foles and Case Keenum both in the playoffs, and maybe the best quarterback in the playoffs that year might have been like a Drew Brees, who also couldn't stretch the ball downfield at all. Yeah, you could have gotten away with getting to the NFC Championship game with Case Keenum. But the world we live in right now, the 2021 AFC landscape, I'm sorry, you're kidding yourself if you think the Browns are going to make any noise in the playoffs with Case Keenum as their quarterback. He just isn't good enough. He can't do the things you need to do to be able to score quickly, to be able to keep up with some of these high-powered offenses, and there are a ton of them in the AFC right now. So that is what I mean. Like, I just don't know how anybody thinks that with Case Keenum, with all these quarterbacks in the AFC, the Browns are going to be able to get to the AFC Championship. You need your franchise guy. You need Baker to get to that level of goals, right? And that's where my concern is coming from when it comes to Baker's injury. You can't waste this year, but you also know that you can't go the whole rest of the season with just Case Keenum. Like, that's not really an option. This is not a year with all these guys on one-year deals where you can say, hey, we'll just punt it and try next year. Because, again, if you stick with Case Keenum, you're essentially punting and trying next year. You're not having serious championship expectations with Case Keenum. That's just the truth. So if that is the case, we have to look at this Baker injury through multiple different lenses. Now, by the time this video uploads, news might be out. So hopefully I cover whatever scenario is out in this video. The best case scenario is that it's just swelling, his shoulder loosens up, and he can go out there and play maybe versus Pittsburgh, but definitely versus Cincinnati. I think you can get away with Case Keenum versus Pittsburgh. I definitely don't think you can get away with Case Keenum against the Cincinnati Bengals. I just don't think that's an option. And if you think you're going to win that game on the road, I'd be surprised if they could. And again, that doesn't have to do with Case Keenum being bad necessarily. It's just he's limited. His skill set is very limited. He's 30-something years old. He's not going to improve anytime soon. And the things that he can't improve are things that he can't improve, right? It's his arm strength, his accuracy downfield. These are things that have never been good with Case Keenum, never will be good with Case Keenum. That's why he's a backup. Best case scenario, hey, you get through Pittsburgh, you get Baker back for Cincinnati, you're good to go for the rest of the year, barring the offensive line blocks better and Baker Mayfield does a better job of evading getting hit, right? So that's best case scenario. If that happens, expectations should remain the same for this team. The next scenario, which I would say the next best scenario, is Baker has to miss more than just a couple of weeks, right? I'm saying 4 to 7 weeks. Let's say that is the timetable for Baker Mayfield to get back. You have to miss 4 to 7 weeks. It gets dicey. You will have 5 games down the stretch. And I think in order for you to keep your hopes alive, you would have to get out of that stretch only losing 2 games. So you have to get out of these next 5 games about 3-2 until you get to the bye. And I would reserve those 2 losses to, if you're playing Case Keenum, Cincinnati and Baltimore. So you lose those 2 games. It's going to be devastating to your division hopes. But when it comes to your wild card hopes, you might be able to keep hope alive because you would still only be a 5-loss team. And if Baker comes back and you win out or you go close to winning out, you could possibly make the playoffs or at least a wild card spot like that. Worst case scenario is Baker Mayfield's out for the year. This is not preferred. Now, I don't know how likely this is to happen. Not a lot of quarterbacks have ever gotten labrum surgery during the year, especially on the non-throwing shoulder, just because for the most part, it's an injury that you can play through. It's going to be painful, but you can play through it. And as long as you can get your arm up to a certain level, it's not going to be something that's going to hinder your level of play too much. So it's something you can play through. And it's a surgery that even if you get it all the way in February, you can recover by the start of next season. It's not ideal, but it's what most players do for those exact reasons. So I don't think this is likely. Now, there could be another injury that they haven't told us about that is going to make this more of a pressing matter, but I don't see it as being super likely that he misses the rest of this season. That being said, if that does happen, this opens up a can of worms that we don't want to open. Because again, Case Keenum is limited. I know some people don't want to believe that right now, but literally look at his entire career. He's limited. He has a limited skill set. You can only go but so far, and even to go that far with him, it takes extenuating circumstances that just aren't going to be available this year. We know this about Case Keenum. The NFL knows this about Case Keenum. I'm going to assume Andrew Berry at least knows this about Case Keenum. So if that is the case, and Baker cannot come back this year, he has to miss the rest of the year with this injury. What we also know is that you can't really afford to waste this year when you have built the last 3 years building to this year. So you got to do something a little bit more drastic at the quarterback position. And I don't think this is going to be a popular thing. I don't think this is going to be something that people like, but you might want to go after a younger quarterback who has some potential that you can look up, that you can look at as possibly being somebody that can take over in the situation that you and Baker Mayfield cannot come to terms on a contract in this offseason or next offseason. I think Baker's going to be under contract next year. He's on the 5th-year option. He's going to get franchise tagged. So if this is the case and Baker's out for the year, you might want to trade for somebody. Like, for example, I don't think this is going to happen, but for example, like a Tua, right, who's a young quarterback who could have some potential, not necessarily somebody you need to start and need to play right away, but somebody who maybe if you develop and Baker wants more money than what you want to give him, you can feel comfortable going to because they have some potential there without having to draft a rookie. Again, not going to be a popular thing to do, but you got to do something, right? Because at least Tua's not limited like Case Keenum. He can at least go down the field, and you can open up some possibilities that way. Like, I'm not trying to freak any Browns fans out or make you think that the Browns are going to trade for somebody who's going to eventually replace Baker Mayfield, but they do need to do something for this year if Baker Mayfield is not going to be able to play. If Baker's going to miss some games, you're fine. If Baker's going to miss a game, you're absolutely fine. But if it's Case Keenum for the rest of the year, you got to do something, right? Because this roster has too much money on this year specifically to just say, hey, we're going to see what we could do in the quarterback-loaded AFC with Case Keenum. It's just not a realistic scenario. So you would have to do something. I don't think they would do something like Cam or something like that. That just doesn't seem like how the Browns operate, would be to bring in like another veteran who has his own limitations at this point in his career. I think they would go for a young guy. I think they would take a flyer on a Mitch Trubisky, on a Tua, on somebody like that, to see if they can provide a short-term solution for the team and give them a long-term insurance plan just in case contract negotiations don't work out with Baker Mayfield, because I don't know where those are going to be after this year, especially if he has to miss this year because he didn't really have the greatest year before it. So that all leads you to this very interesting can of worms that the Browns are into. Again, hopefully he's not out for the year. Hopefully we avoid this entire conversation. But I do think it's a conversation worth talking about, just because you need to figure something out that's not Case Keenum for the rest of the year if Baker can't play for the rest of the year. Again, 2 games, Case Keenum's fine, but you cannot go the rest of the year with this roster with Case Keenum. That's just unacceptable. That would not be good management. That's just my thoughts on this whole situation. Let me know your thoughts down below. But again, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.